Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're traveling way back in time to an ancient text to explore what might literally be the most extreme dating requirement in human history. We're looking at a fascinating little excerpt from the Astika Parva, which is a subsection of the grand epic, the Adi Parva. We're going to unpack a short but honestly brilliant narrative about expectations, vows, and fate. Okay, let's dive into this, because this isn't your standard romance. It's a tale of rigid principles, desperate prayers, and a matchmaking scenario that is truly out of this world.
So what is your ultimate dating deal breaker? We all have them, right? Maybe it's someone who chews loudly or, a fundamental difference in lifestyle choices or values. In the modern dating world, we set up all sorts of filters to find the perfect match. But as we'll see in this ancient text, our modern deal breakers have absolutely nothing on the standards held by the protagonist of our story. Imagine having a requirement so incredibly specific that it makes swiping right on the entire population of the planet practically impossible.
Section 1. The Brahmana's Dilemma.
Meet our protagonist, the high-souled Jaratkaru. He's a Brahmana, a man deeply committed to a life of spirituality, and he's known throughout the text for his incredibly rigid vows. He's famous for austere penances and just unbelievable discipline. But despite his immense wisdom, he's got a looming problem. He needs to marry to fulfill his duties, but his strict, uncompromising way of living makes this an impossibly difficult task. The narrator of our text, Saudi, tells us, "That Brahmana of rigid vows then wandered over the earth for a wife, but a wife found he not." He didn't just check the next village over, folks, he's scoured the globe. But his rigid vows were seemingly entirely at odds with finding a partner. His complete inability to find a spouse, despite searching the whole world, sets the stage for a moment of profound, quiet despair.
Section 2. A Faint Forest Prayer.
Driven by the heavy expectations of his ancestors, Jaratkaru exhausts literally all worldly options and is pushed to his absolute breaking point. This ancestral expectation is a heavy, looming burden he carries around. It drives him away from civilization, away from his global search, and deep into the isolation of a forest, feeling entirely defeated. First, he wanders the earth and fails to find a bride. Driven by duty, he retreats into the forest. And finally, he prays. But notice how the source describes this. He prayed thrice in a faint voice. This faint voice is such a powerful, evocative detail from the text. It paints a really vivid picture of a man who is just exhausted, perhaps a bit hopeless, uttering a quiet, desperate plea to the universe after a colossal, earth-spanning failure. And then boom, thereupon Vasuki rose and offered his sister. It is a sudden, almost magical intervention. Out of nowhere, in direct response to this faint, desperate three-time prayer, Vasuki, who is a prominent snake in the mythology, rises up. The shift in the story here is incredibly abrupt. One moment, Jaratkaru is whispering into the silent forest canopy, and the very next moment, a supernatural snake has appeared, directly offering him a bride. Now that is what you call a swift answer to a prayer.
Section 3. The Ultimate Deal Breaker.
You'd logically think that after wandering the entire earth and finally getting a miraculous supernatural answer to his prayers, Jaratkaru would immediately say yes, thank you, and start planning the wedding, right? But he doesn't. Instead of instantly accepting this miraculous offer from Vasuki the snake, the Brahmana actually hesitates. He hits pause on the whole miraculous encounter because of an intensely specific, deeply ingrained internal rule. He thinks within himself, "I will take none for wife who is not of the same name with myself." So the crucial point is, this is his rigid vow. This is his ultimate non-negotiable deal breaker. He won't marry someone just because they're kind, or noble, or, offered by a magical snake. He will only marry a woman who shares his exact identical name. When you see his requirement laid out like this, it's absolutely no wonder he couldn't find a wife while wandering the earth. The statistical probability of finding someone with the exact same name who is also an eligible and willing match is practically zero.
Section 4. The Snake's Convenient Sister.
Jaratkaru, this Rishi of great wisdom and austere penances, isn't going to just take Vasuki's word for it. No way. He needs to test whether this supernatural bride actually meets his near-impossible standard before he can even entertain the idea of accepting the offer. He looks at Vasuki and demands, "Tell me truly, what is the name of this thy sister, O snake?" You can almost hear the tension in the forest. He's putting his foot down. The fate of his ancestral line, the integrity of his rigid vows, and his faint forest prayer all hinge entirely on the answer to this one wildly specific question. He's literally testing fate itself right at this moment to see if the universe has truly provided his exact match.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate punchline of the text. On the left side, we have our groom, Jaratkaru, the Rishi, and on the right side, the bride, the sister of this snake. Her name is Jaratkaru. It's a perfect, unbelievable match. Against all worldly odds, her name is exactly the same as his. The seemingly impossible condition has been met right there in the middle of the forest.
Vasuki replies, "O Jaratkaru, this my younger sister is called Jaratkaru. Given away by me, accept this slender-waisted damsel for thy spouse. O best of Brahmanas, for thee I reserved her." Notice that crucial detail right at the end there. It wasn't just a wild coincidence. Vasuki specifically reserved this slender-waisted damsel just for the Rishi. The universe, or at the very least this highly intuitive snake, knew exactly what the Brahmana needed and was purposefully waiting for the right moment to deliver her.
Section 5. The Ordained Union.
Once that ultimate deal breaker is satisfied, all of Jaratkaru's hesitation vanishes instantly. With his sacred vow preserved and his impossible criterion miraculously met, the Brahmana immediately accepts Vasuki's offer. He takes his beautifully named bride and they are promptly married with all the ordained rites. Look at the incredibly rapid escalation here. For an agonizingly long time, Jaratkaru was simply wandering the entire earth with absolutely zero success. Then, one day, we hit the breaking point, the faint forest prayer. Moments later, Vasuki makes the supernatural offer. Seconds later, the ultimate name reveal happens, satisfying the impossible vow, and shortly after that, the ordained rites are completed. The story transforms Jaratkaru from a hopeless, exhausted wanderer into a successfully married man almost in the blink of an eye. The narrative resolves itself perfectly and swiftly once the universe aligns with his rigid vow.
So I leave you with this final thought. Would you hold out for a spouse with your exact name? Or did Jaratkaru just get incredibly lucky? It really makes you ponder the fascinating intersection of ancient vows, unbelievably strict personal rules, and miraculous fate presented in this excerpt from the Astaka Parva. Sometimes the most rigid boundaries lead to the most extraordinary and perfectly tailored resolutions. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. I hope you found this breakdown helpful. And hey, keep questioning what makes the perfect match.